Hello, patrons. It is Monday, October 7th, 2019. It's October. I'm so excited. I'm feeling it. I've already seen my spooky movie for the month. Saw Joker this weekend, and we'll be doing a Joker spoiler mode later today with at least Ian Hank and Michael Huber. Other people might show up, but I am been conversing with those two gentlemen. Here's hoping for some major news. Uh-oh. Mushworks is asking for major news. Is Joker your... Now, hopefully I'll watch more spooky movies this month, but cheers, everybody. Cup of Jones. Feels good. Everybody seems to be in a good mood and chat. It's good to start off another week. The community showcase is tomorrow. Instead of last week, last Cup of Jones, I said I'll see you at the showcase, and we're going to be doing that tomorrow. And because it's a different Tuesday, we're going to be doing it at 10 a.m., super early. Shout out to Brad Ellis, who is so cool and so willing to roll with anything. I was like... let's do it next Tuesday, but we got to do it really early. And he was like, that's fine. I'm like, oh, Brad, I love you. So, here we go. If you want to feel real bad, watch Day of the Dead. Yeah, Day of the Dead. That's, watch Day of the Dead. Unless you're like super young kids. Season 2 of Achieve It Yourself is, this week. We'll be, kicking off this week. And what's nice, what we're going to do this time for patrons and for, it's kind of a win-win because it's for patrons, but it's also to incentivize people more to join the Patreon. And it's a mistake that we didn't realize until we posted our last exclusive show that we wanted to give early access to for people watching on Patreon. And that's when we had our first episode, and it was like, oh, come to Easy Allies to watch more stuff. There was no more stuff to watch. The next episode didn't go up until the week later. So if you are a patron of Easy Allies at that early access level, you will get 2 episodes of Achieve It Yourself because the first episode will be going public. And then if people are like, ooh, I want more of this, you get more. You get that second episode when you sign up for Patreon. So we're going to see how that works in terms of rolling out the whole season. But I'm in the season. Yay. I don't know when I'm going to show up specifically, but I am in the season. I was very stressed out. I had a lot of fun. New friend code graphics. I tried to download it and had some issues downloading it from YouTube for some reason, but check them out. New friend code graphics. Again, that's Chris and Joe doing their stuff. Thanks to them. Was not involved at all in the production of those graphics, so it's just neat to see all that stuff get dressed up. And what's fun about new graphics is we have the TVs in the background. So when you have new graphics, it's not just the intro. They're sitting there in the background looking pretty. There's a new opinion yell. If you haven't checked it out already, we, do those every now and then, and those are very special. I don't think we could do that every week. I think that needs to be like a 3 or 4, a year maybe limit on Opinion Yell. Star Wars versus Epic Game Store. I'm in it very briefly, but I did manage to be in it because I had to head home. Talked about the Joker spoiler mode. Played lots of Link's Awakening over the weekend. I had to steal the cartridge away from Amanda, borrowing the cartridge from Damiani. Amanda took it, and then I didn't realize how much he was playing because you have to understand, raising the baby, there's a lot of times when Amanda's awake and I'm asleep and vice versa. And so a lot of times when I was asleep, she was around Milo, who was asleep, and she was playing Link's Awakening. So she's actually more caught up than I had expected her to be. But it would be way too much of a logistical challenge to get her on a spoiler mode or something. But myself and a couple other allies who have never played Link's Awakening back on the Game Boy are going to sit down with Damiani this week and talk about Link's Awakening and talk about what we think. I'm going to try to finish it. I'm about halfway through, but we'll see. We'll see if I can get there. But it's been fun. I don't know if you saw my tweet, but I'm playing lots of Link's Awakening, lots of Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which we will talk about today in our editorial, thanks to one of the allies' comments. And it's funny because you're both stranded on a mysterious island that popped up out of nowhere and learning the circumstances of why you were trapped there and how you can get home. It's like literally the plot of both games to a T. And I talked last week about Trailer Jones. There still hasn't been a new episode of Trailer Jones. 2 trailers I totally missed. Birds of Prey, I could have grabbed Huber, and Picard was a huge one, even though it's very spoilery, and I don't want Amanda to see those spoilers, but I could have grabbed Amanda for spoiler mode. This last week, just for me personally, a little inside baseball here, was very upside down in terms of my schedule. Wednesday and Thursday, those days when those trailers happened, were just like nothing was going to happen outside of what I already had scheduled for Easy A and what I was doing, just personally, which sucks. Hopefully you don't hear that too often here on Cup of Jones, especially at the beginning when we're really just going through very quick business updates where I'm like, I had a rough week. It's like, all right, Jones, you want to talk about it? You don't want to talk about it. Well, then how is that relevant to us patrons? But it was a wild one. But what's nice is We feels so good to have Cup of Jones kind of hitting its stride. And Bloodworth is in chat, and it also has to start Link's Awakening. And so it's nice to have Trailer Jones set up that way, and then hopefully we'll get the factory wheels spinning and start tossing out episodes of Trailer Jones. And I didn't talk about this last week for the editorial, but again, I do have episodes. Cue Daniel Bloodworth eye roll in 3-2. I have 2 episodes recorded already, one for Cats and one for Star Wars Episode 8, the last Star Wars trailer that we got. I talked to Brad Ellis about it. And so those are recorded. I just haven't cut the episodes. Those shouldn't take me too long. Haven't had time yet. And I might put those up unlisted and then just post those on Patreon. So you can check out the new version of the show. And then once those get old enough, make them unlisted. And then they won't appear in our new uploads list, but they'll be on the new playlist so you can see the new graphics and stuff like that. For Trailer Jones, but we'll see. I'll run that by Bloodworth. But let's look at the schedule. Bam. I want to before we even talk about this schedule, I'm actually going to jump ahead through business questions because this is a fascinating exchange that happened in the comments. It got it all wrapped up, but I just want to keep you up to date in case you just listen to Cup of Jones or watch Cup of Jones and you're not in the comments. Sarah Imshog, aka Zephyr Moon, says, "Long-time listener, first-time commenter." Zephyr Moon, first-time commenter on Cup of Jones. Never thought about it. So I have a bit of constructive criticism, and it has to do with the schedule image that gets put out every week on Twitter and YouTube. While it looks good and is practical for mobile use, I have a hard time seeing it because the colors used are a touch too dark against a black background, and it kind of looks a little cluttered. I suggest that you brighten up the colors and format the schedule so that the events under the day of the week are under the day of the week instead of right next to it. For example, from last week's schedule, Monday colored white so it stands out on the black background, Frame Trap colored red for YouTube, 10 a.m. Cup of Jones colored orange for Patreon, Tuesday 12 p.m. Community Showcase colored light purple for Twitch, 6 p.m. Heave-Ho and Kyle's Game Boy Game, etc. Just a little suggestion, and it might also be a little easier when putting the schedule together every week, as you don't have to change things all that much. Thank you for listening to my rambling. Bloodworth is on it. The trouble with adding a separate line for the day of the week is that it would add 7 new lines to the graphic, and I already have a hard time fitting everything in that space as it is. I think it would result in ending up being that the text is smaller and closer together and thus harder to read. As far as it feeling harder to read in general, it's definitely been a bit of a thorn in my side. I think I've only heard that from a couple of people, but it bugs me nonetheless. When I look at it, it seems to stand out very well, even when I try to turn on my phone's brightness to minimum, etc. The only time it seems The only time it seems hard to read is if it's not being displayed at full resolution as the text gets kind of compressed. Others, including graphic designers, have reassured me that it's perfectly readable, and I even had a colorblind person elated that it was more readable than most colorblind options. I've tried a few ideas to try to make it better, but nothing that works for me so far. That said, you'll probably see more tweaks to come. Robin Clower jumps in. Blood, as a web developer, I use this tool to check for color contrast, and then links the tool. Official WCAG guidelines say that the contrast should be 4.5, so using the official Twitch hex code and black say that the two colors don't contrast enough. Blood is on it. Interesting. Maybe that's why Twitch recently changed their official color. I put in the new code, and it passed your test. Updated the schedule template with it too. Woo! I love it. This is Cup of Jones. Here's what let's do it. I'm here for this. I'm here for Zephyr Moon being on it. I'm here for Robin dropping links. I'm here for making all of this stuff as good as it could possibly be. I talked about that in the comments. We haven't even gotten into business questions, and we're trying to change the color of the sketch. I love it. Coming, the white at the top now. It's really good. So it's frustrating sometimes that not to drag this into something else, but the sound isn't great in our streaming room. We still don't have pictures up on the wall. We want to turn that one part of the hallway into literal Hall of Greats, and I want to do that. The office needs to be touched up. There's so many things that we want to make better about Easy Allies, and it just seems like you're addressing one squeaky wheel and the other wheel falls off. And although no wheels are falling off right now at Easy Allies, all wheels are on. But we think about this all the time, and it might seem like we're not focusing on the one thing that you want us to fix, but thank you, Zephyr Moon. Thank you, Kristen, for bringing up the pause image on Twitch. Just all these little details, they do add up, and they are really important. I mean, we look at it every week. Speaking of, here's our schedule. Cup of Jones is happening right now. Community Showcase got bumped. Love so much that Star Wars Rogue Squadron 3 Rebel Strike is being played tomorrow for our stream team. What a pull. That's what I'm talking about. That is the stream team right there. Is the community being like, I have an idea. How about one of the most gorgeous GameCube games ever created? Tuesday at 6 tomorrow night. I may or may not be on the group stream tomorrow night because I'm doing the community showcase tomorrow morning, and I'm going to get to the studio early to do that. And that's going to be after all night taking care of a bebe, and I'm going to be very tired. So apologies, I've been kind of wishy-washy on the group streams lately. But Yooka-Laylee, also single-player game, so the more people you have in that room, you don't necessarily need like a room packed full of people, but we'll see. And then Wednesday, as we said, Achieve It Yourself. I have not watched the new season yet. Kyle Bossman, Ian, and Blood have all been on top of that in terms of getting all those episodes out. Huge shout out to Ian Hink for packaging all of those episodes together. Shout out to Kyle for conceiving of it and hosting it while we do it, and Ian putting all that stuff together. Weird feeling for something that massive to happen, and like I just showed up and played a couple games, got a little stressed out and joked, and then boom, here's a show. So lots of love to those two guys for finishing that. RE5 most likely finishing. I think this is it. I think this is the end of RE5. Definitely not the end of Trials of Mana. Definitely not the end of Weekly Hunts, and definitely not the end of Pokemon Silver, all happening on Thursday. Thursday's so awesome. It's so epic. And we do the podcast that night. And then PS4 grab bag from Kyle. No more Game Boy game. We'll talk about the Game Boy game coming up. I committed an atrocity last week while playing Kyle's Game Boy game, and it's a new thing I need to work on. But we'll get into it. Business questions. Brandon K. Gann, how are the pairings and groupings for streams determined? And are those locked in, or are they fluid depending on the games the allies want to stream? Bloodworth answers, the only teams I would consider locked in are Mike and Mike and Ian and Don streams. The Thursday streams will probably change up after the current series are done. I don't know about Kyle and myself. Trials of Mana probably could be a change-up thing. That might be like a full playthrough stream. I don't know. I've not been focused on that. Obviously focused on Pokemon Silver. I already have plans to play at least one thing with Kyle once Pokemon Silver's over. So Kyle and I will still try to hang on to that. And Kyle and I have a camaraderie. It makes sense schedule-wise because we're always on the podcast, which shoots immediately after that. So I would love to be involved in that stream. That's also like my stream. Like I do Cup of Jones every week, but that's me playing a game, controller in my hand, if I'm not hogging it from somebody on the group stream. Or missing the group stream like I am this week. But yeah, not only locked in, but as I've mentioned before, Mike and Mike was like the first one. We were like, we should stream together as a group. And Damiani's like, I'm streaming Wednesdays. Who's in? And Huber's like, me. It was a beautiful, I'll never forget that moment. It was beautiful. And then we were like, oh, Mike and Mike, that worked itself out. Obviously, Ian and Don are our best editor buds. And it's just awesome to have Don streaming. Awesome to have him, on our Twitch channel more. And I get along great with Kyle. And so I think those, I wouldn't say locked in because I never want to make those promises, but I think those are extremely comfortable. And then obviously stream team and then that full playthrough, which is currently Trials of Mana, and something like Weekly Hunts. Like those might be changed in and out for other things. Corey Swafford, I'm curious how you guys handle shared chores around the office, taking out the trash, cleaning the toilet, vacuuming, cleaning the fridge, etc. Has this ever been discussed or presented issues within the group? No. We did that right away when we moved into the studio. First meeting we had in the studio, we all gathered in person, which is rare. We usually gather online because we're all over the place, and handed them out. In case you're curious, taking out the trash, Michael Damiani and Kyle Bossman. Cleaning the toilet, Ben Moore. Vacuuming, me. Brad gets really excited whenever I do it. I started vacuuming the hallway the other day, and Brad ran out of the stream room and was like, yeah! And I was like, okay, Brad. Vacuuming, yeah! It's a super handy vac. It's not like a big deal, and so it's like I can see Ian vacuuming. I can see like Huber vacuuming. I can see the guys doing that, but I was the last person to vacuum in the studio. Cleaning the fridge is a shared responsibility between myself and Brad. Brad is in charge of the food situation in terms of making sure stuff is out. I am responsible for making sure stuff is purchased and delivered, and he's the one that lets me know, hey Jones, Ben wants Coke Zero, or hey Bloodworth wants tea, or we have too much of this, or we don't need this anymore, or we ran out of this, or whatever. So there you go. Do. And Ben just doesn't clean the toilet. Ben cleans the bathroom. Ben is in charge of making the bathroom nice. So it's nice. It's nice walking in there, open up the door, and Ben's like, oh. Nirav G, what is your main strategy for expanding your user base? I see the YouTube channel is at 225K currently, which is still a huge accomplishment. Thank you. However, I feel like you guys are mentioned all over Reddit, and I'm surprised there's not a bigger following. I make sure to recommend you to my gaming-minded friends, but I'm curious about what the general plan is to grow the subscriber base. Or is that not integral to your business plan? Bloodworth is on it. It's really just a natural thing that comes with some of our content. A lot of people join in for reviews, previews, and reactions, and then start to catch some of the other things later. If you look at Giant Bomb and Kind of Funny Games, their subscriber counts are fairly similar, so considering our channel is a bit newer than either of them, I think we're doing pretty well for the kinds of content that we produce. Yeah, there definitely is a cap, I think, for, hey, let's just talk about games. Maybe stream some stuff. I agree that's not girlfriend reviews. That's not the Valley Folk. That's not gonna it's not gonna blow us up. Or really what Funhouse has been doing with Arizona Circle. Like I see even like Angry Video Game Nerd, like there's other people that I idolize that I've worked with in the past that I think create a singular type of content that more than anything else that we do, with the exception of probably reviews, are perfectly catered for a mass YouTube audience. And I think that's been a question that's come up on Cup of Jones a lot, this kind of introduction to Easy Allies, which is something that I admit we could smooth out more. And as we are still finalizing, I'm waiting on Prison of Love. Now, the Prison of Love needs to be rushed, but I want a clip from Prison of Love to put in our promo before we have like our brand new Phase 4. Here's all our shows. Look at everything that we do. Promo for Patreon, YouTube, Twitch, and whatever. But this idea of people coming in and then being like, wait a minute, I was duped. This is just a bunch of nerds sitting around talking about games. So I think now that we're in Phase 4, I think our number one priority was to finish Phase 4, to get Phase 4 smoothed out. And what's really great, what actually makes me feel really good is, if not weekly, every other week, for the last couple weeks when I've showed up, there's been a lot of new stuff. A new Cup of Jones, new graphics on Friend Code, new Trailer Jones, new, Achieve It Yourself premieres this week. We had something, occasional board game show premiered the week before that, Mysterious Monsters. We had a bunch of new episodes. We've done new shoots of that, and that's coming out together. We RPG is in production. Prison of Love is in production. So like there's this fun ongoing wheel of all of this new stuff. And then I think once all of that stuff is out, once all of that stuff, and by that time we'll really be deep in review season and getting ready for our vacation, getting ready to wrap up the year and getting ready for GOTYs next year. Then when we look ahead at 2020, we got new consoles coming out. We have a lot of fun events coming up. We can really start to look at, let's bring in a lot more people to come in for interviews. Let's bring in encourage a lot more devs to come in. Again, a lot of this we don't have control over, but these are ways to grow the audience, to introduce ourselves to communities surrounding certain games, because we get exclusive access or fun access to certain games or developers or for interviews and stuff like that. Possibly ramping up our guest stuff, we talk about goals. I mean, I still want to do that guest show, just logistically, financially. It's not realistic right now, but, we have plans for growth at the end of the year. We have plans for growth in 2020 we haven't talked about yet, which sucks because some of this stuff, it's like the thing we want to do next year that, we're just not talking about yet. But I think get through Phase 4, and it's tough because I think a lot of people associate Phase 4 with growth. We talked about this also recently where they're like, how much did you want Easy Allies to blow up because of Phase 4? And it's like, I wasn't expecting Easy Allies to blow up. If anything, I was expecting a little bit of a dip from Phase 4. I just wanted that to happen, and then we're fine. And then we're relatively at the same number financially that we were before. We're at the same subscriber count. We're at the same audience, retention. We're just a little more comfortable with what we're doing. We enjoy what we're doing more. I can't even tell you the joy on my schedule now, starting Cup of Jones on a Monday, and then Thursday night playing Pokemon Silver, this crazy roller coaster emotional ride of a full playthrough stream, and then shooting the podcast after that, cutting the podcast, getting up, posting the podcast, and then it's Friday, and like I'm done. My work week's done. I might edit a review over the weekend. Certainly, I'm going to get ready for the next Cup of Jones on Monday, and I'll like this weekend, I'm playing Link's Awakening and Breakpoint as much as I possibly can to get ready for playing co-op with Huber for his review and doing this Link's Awakening video on Wednesday. And so everyone's in such a great mood. And so I think let's get through Q4. Let's get as many reviews done as we possibly can. Shout out to people like Ben and Brad that are just reviewing one thing after another. Then do our GOTYs, and then we'll talk about let's travel. Let's go to as many events as we can. Let's bring in more guests, as many as we can. Let's maybe start shooting some kind of crazy things, Opinion Yell-esque, just kind of some fun stuff that, again, is more YouTube friendly. But these like major steps you're probably not going to see until the end of the year, if not 2020. Long answer, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Not even at 10:30 yet. I'm going to say this in every episode from now until forever. I just love the Streamlined Cup of Jones. Neil K. Bonsteel. I used to be an avid watcher of Kyle's Friday night streams until he started working on his Game Boy game. Despite finding those streams soothing and fun I have in the background while I worked, I realized that the game being produced was something genuinely unique and that I want to experience fresh. I also realized that from what I saw, his Game Boy game would actually be something I'd pay to play. I'm not suggesting that when the game is released to the public, it is being released to the public, right? Yes, Kyle's posting on itch.io, I believe. Kyle should charge for it, but maybe a donate to Easy A button or pay what you scheme. Or pay what you scheme? Oh, I suspect Kyle would push back on an idea like this. Oh, you bet. And I don't blame him, but I would gladly donate for an experience. At the very least, is there some plan to have this game released with some attention being drawn to Easy A? I'm thinking the opening credits or something. Granted, I stopped watching the work in progress streams a while back, so the game could be trash, haha. But if it is indeed, the game is excellent, has shaped up to be the fun, quirky game it was looking like from the early stages, I think it's a good means to either get you guys some extra money or bring in a larger audience. Worst case, I'll personally up my pledge for a month in honor of the game, so there's that. Thanks, Neil. Again, I get Kyle comments on this show, and I feel like I'm breaking hearts on behalf of Kyle Bossman, because I know, Kyle's not going to be into that. But there potentially is ways that we can promote Easy Allies through that. It's tough asking for money on other platforms because we have our Patreon. We have such an easy, engaging method to help donate to our cause. I understand some people just don't like Patreon. There's nothing we can do about that, but or not much we can do about that. But it's weird being, unless we're doing a specific fundraiser for something, it's weird being like, hey, do this other weird thing other than just going to this source and finding not only ways you can just give us money, but ways that you can give us money and be rewarded for it. And so that is a little bizarre, but I'll throw it to Kyle. I will see him, later this week. I'll definitely see him tomorrow. I can message to him in Slack. What do you think, Kyle? Promotion. Zeno, have you guys ever considered having a game of the 2010's Decade Awards video as the decade is coming to a close? Yeah, there are those people that are like, well, technically, the decade only comes to a close in 2021. But people have suggested this before. I put it in takeaways. Yeah, could be fun. That's just me saying it could be fun. The guys could not be into it. And we don't do countdowns anymore. And I don't know, maybe we would want to add that to the Goaties. Again, that's just Jones. That's just a crazy Jones idea. Maybe we add it to the Goaties. We have like a game of the decade as well. Could be fun to have that in the conversation, because I don't know about its own video in terms of time. I don't know how that fits into all the stuff that we're doing for Phase 4. Asbo Zapruder. Okay, so Phase 4 of Easy Allies was the very model of a modern Major General. Would it be able to tell its sight a Mauser rifle from a javelin? Yes, in fact, we also know what is meant by Mamelon and Ravelin. Do you know what Mamelon and Ravelin are? Mamelon is those little bumps on your teeth. That's a Mamelon. You're little, like when they like pop out of the gums and just like, they have like a little like right at the top there. That's a Mamelon. And a Ravelin is like a fort defense. I'm all about Ravelins. Ravelins, because I like those tower defense games. So, in fact, we do. Snowcone Guy. If EZA should decide to review the new Brain Age game for Switch, how would it be reviewed? What is the best way to review a game like that? Do you just talk about the playful aspect of the game and list its features? Do you make a journal and report on your mental gains? Which ally would be the best candidate to review the game? How did you handle reviewing games like this at GT, and what did you perhaps learn from that you would change now? Interesting question. Snowcone Guy, there's not a lot of red flags, honestly, that are popping up. The major red flag is that, can you play this game docked? I don't think you can. I haven't seen the trailer all the way through. I've just seen like images of it. I think I saw it on Twitter with the volume off. But yeah, I think that's like the major problem. There's a couple games like that we're like, oh yeah, we can't plug this into something. So this would probably be a friend code conversation. That would probably be the best way to do that. But when you're talking about like, do you talk about the playful aspect of the game, list its features? Do you make a journal and report on your mental games? All of that. I mean, that's any game review is essentially describing your experience with the game. And so, case in point, something like Fortnite. Like we could have reviewed Fortnite at any point. It's still technically in early access. Like we could review, like same with Minecraft. There are weird games that it's like it's tough to know when to jump in and what kind of format. But at the end of the day, no matter what, how long that game has been out, or if it's an early access or whatever, you talk about your experience. You try to, cram as much of that in there as possible. Straw Hat Ninja. I know the last episode, someone brought up 4 games that you sadly aren't reviewing. I was just wondering if there are genre-specific games that you push allies toward reviewing, or you would just let the allies pick what they were interested in. What would happen if no one wanted to review a huge game like The Last of Us Part 2, which you would want to cover? Also, I'm personally interested in if you guys are reviewing Trials of Cold Steel 3. Trails of Cold Steel. Trails. I always do that. Ben is on tap to get the code for Trails of Cold Steel. I don't know what coverage he has planned for that, so I don't think we're going to review that game, but I know Ben is going to be checking it out. That's an interesting... I'm curious what Blood has to say about that, not to put him on the spot, but I can't imagine a situation where nobody would want to review something like Last of Us Part 2. Like, that would be crazy to me. I think there might be instances where people are too busy, where we tell someone, hey, can you do this? And they're like, I want to do that, but I'm just too busy working on something else. And so we're like, that thing that you want to do instead of this review, we don't think is as important as this review. So we think you should review that instead. Maybe that's happened like a handful of times, but really it's just like when Blood comes out with the codes, imagine like some crazy cat lady, with just like whiskers, and like we all come running. Like, it is such an exciting time. I remember, it reminds me of a Far Side ad of like this grandma deer, and she's there's one deer that's licking on a salt lick, and the other deer is like, huh, huh, and it's jumping up and down, and the grandma's like, yes, I have a salt lick for you too, and is giving a salt lick to the other baby deer. And it's like, what? It makes no sense. That's Bloodworth just handing out salt licks. Actually, I don't think Trails is probably going to get much coverage anytime soon, since it's crazy important to be caught up with that series. Ah, that's right. That was the catch. We've talked about this previously on Cup, I believe. That's the catch with Trails. Blood has... I have so many codes that just go into the void with no response. Yeah, there's just... it's an ocean of... It's a tidal wave of codes. Amanda's back from her walk. And here's Soph. Here, let's do it, Soph. Come on. Let's do it. Come on, Soph. Let's do this quick. Alexander Zirionov, your current Q&A setup has one important disadvantage. The host never goes full screen, so each time we can barely see one of you. How about adding another PC to the conference call and stream from that PC? Damiani. There she is. There's the dog. Oh. That pup. Damiani's the one that streams. I think Damiani has the power to... another solution is... because you're watching Damiani's feed, basically. Damiani just needs, I think, it might have been Ian. I was late to the Q&A and there were technical difficulties, so it actually might have been Ian that time. But Damiani was the one that was planned. I think for the next Q&A, it will be Damiani that will be on the controls there. It was whoever you didn't see. Whoever wasn't here, like from Clue. But if you can click on your picture and then it'll show up. So that person just needs to be aware that they're talking, and every now and then, boop, hit that button so you're not looking at the person that's looking at the person that's talking. But yeah, we talked about that. We'll try to find a solution for that. We don't have like laptops lying around that we can use for that, but maybe that's something we can do in the future. Radioactive Magic. You mentioned a little while back that you would enjoy having the angry video game nerd Michael Pachter and Arlo the puppet on Mysterious Monsters. So now I'm curious, what cross-promotional work have you considered with other YouTube content creators? I know you have close ties with people from Funhouse and a few others. Feel free to list them. But what about, What's Good Games? Shout out. But what about outside your immediate network? How often are the allies approached from other creators? If it happens often, how much of a factor is the content they produce and the number of subscribers or reviewers they have a role in taking or leaving the offer? I'll stop right there, Radioactive Magic. Not a lot. We don't get, again, like when we, right now, when we are, sending out emails and getting on the phone with people and hunting down contacts and trying to make business deals, not business deals, but like, set up relationships. It's almost always around code. It's almost always around. Blood just landed a really great contact that he'd been trying to get for a really long time. So that's really like our forefront. And then it's kind of stuff like Mysterious Monsters and Reaction Shots and Fiasco Nuts and Friend Code that kind of are at the forefront of bringing in guests. And so it really is like Damiani and Ian who are primarily doing a lot of that. And a lot of that has really been just famous, fun people that we know that are in LA. Our famous fun friends. And Morgan Mulhalla actually adds to this, although I need to finish Radioactive Magic's question. I've seen a fair amount of other channels doing cross-promotion over the years with collaborative works, or both creators talking about a similar topic, and so make reference to each other for viewers to bounce in between. Is this a viable strategy for the allies to engage more in, or maybe I have just completely missed the times you have done this somehow? I know some of the allies have appeared in other videos and other channels, but not really there to promote Easy Allies, I don't think. Not as much as you would expect. I was in like a string of podcasts a couple years ago, but I have not done that a lot since. Morgan Mohala, on generally the same theme. You said a few weeks ago you were interested in collaborations with former GT creators such as Hey Ash, What You Playin' members, the Angry Video Game Nerd, and Michael Pachter. Have you reached out to gauge interest? Are you waiting until after the review season? It feels like this would be entertaining content that could bridge audiences and grow the channel. If you're picking your moment, can you expound on your machinations? Yeah, just Phase 4. You know, we are making the shows we talked about in Phase 4. We are rolling those out. You have something like this Link's Awakening video I'm doing on Wednesday. Again, the stuff we're doing right now is more code focused. It's review season. It's the easiest way for us to get R2. Will you calm down? It's the easiest way for us to get eyeballs on us. An easiest way to do a lot of things to fulfill kind of what we're all about, which is primarily games coverage, to take advantage of just like really long-standing releases, things we've been waiting for forever, like Doom Eternal, Death Stranding, like these games that we've been waiting to talk about for a very long time. And then, basically what we would need is when you say you've seen other creators and other YouTube creators, I think a lot of times those creators are making shows, they're looking for content to do in their shows. They're like, it's kind of like their whole channel is Easy Update. Like they might have a podcast, but like they do lots of vlogs. They do, lots of videos that they're like, hey, this week I'm going to hang out with this content creator. I'm going to collaborate on this thing, or I'm going to do something like The Completionist. Like The Completionist produces a lot of features that involve him collaborating with a lot of people. Like that is his business model. If we did more of that, it would benefit Easy Allies, but it is not currently our business model. It's not necessarily what we're known for. It would be us reaching outside of our comfort zone. Phase 4 is a little bit of that. Again, we want to be more engaged and happy about the job that we are doing, but we are still all, I think each ally in some way is kind of stretching their limits a little bit in terms of what they are comfortable with doing or used to doing. And I think when we, Mysterious Monsters is kind of the beginning of this guest thing. It is a show that requires guests. I was just thinking we had Andrea Renee just moved down to LA, and Steimer is also in LA, so like not to put them spotlight on them, but it's just like they seem like perfect additions to Mysterious Monsters. But I would imagine some kind of a guest show or some kind of opening in our schedule that would allow for maybe once a month or every now and then some kind of a special feature that we could do around collaborating. But right now, jamming that into our schedule would take a lot of time, especially considering we have 2 or 3 shows that are involved in Phase 4 that haven't even launched yet. Andrew Chalmers, those new graphics for Trailer Jones look awesome, thanks. I love how the colors affect the silhouettes. I wonder, is it possible to animate the curtains to open and close at the beginning and end of the episode? I think that would be a nice touch. The curtains, that go. Yeah, I guess they could. Some people also asked if the silhouettes could move, if we could like talk while we're talking, or like put a hand up or something, or move. And Chris LaRue mentioned actually in chat last week that he's like, yeah, I tried that. It looks stupid and it was distracting. So those visuals might evolve as we've moved forward, but we put Chris through definitely a grind in the middle of the summer, towards the end of the summer, and but he finally got all that stuff done. So thank you, Chris and Joe. Scott Dancer, I just wanted to comment on something I've noticed when you stream. It was a particularly an issue during the group stream when you were playing Kyle's game. Here we go. Are you ready? It's how you handle reading text while streaming a game. All the allies do it a bit differently, but I think you are the closest to just outright ignoring that an audience has to follow along. Blood is the best, as he almost always reads it out loud. For some games, like Kyle's short Game Boy game, you should really read all the dialogue out loud. It makes the streaming experience so much better. Some games don't warrant all the text, but just the major points. Pokemon Silver falls into this. Just wanted to point this out as something that could be improved and something you can learn from your fellow allies. Interesting. This is the first time in almost 4 years. The first time, I think, I'm definitely the first time in my video game career I've ever been called out on this. And like, you're right. I never thought about it. But here's what it is. And you might not be thinking of this because this is a totally different thing from what you're thinking, but this is my perspective. And here's why I do it. And here's why I won't do it moving forward. I talk a lot. I don't know if you know that. I do this show every week. You should check it out sometimes, called Cup of Jones, where it used to go on for like 3 hours. Now it's thankfully, an hour-ish. The last episode has been under an hour. But anyways, I digress. I spend the entirety of the show talking, and then I do a Pokemon Silver stream where I talk all the way through that. And then I do a group stream where the allies are like, hey, you do the intro and conclusions. I'm like, all right. So you tune in the group stream, and I'm like, hey, everybody, we're these allies. And at the end, I'm like, hey, everybody, be the allies. And then, there's podcasts. I'm just like, hey, I'm back. I'm on the podcast now. And blah, 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 blah. And then, Jones on Frame Trap. And I'm just like, hey, Builders 2, blah, blah, blah. I just do so much talking. And I love it. And I don't know what it is. I'm just very loquacious. And so when I do these streams and I play these games, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to make fun characters. And I'm going to do these weird characters like I did my Box Pig voice for one guy. And I start to get this little fear in my head where it's like, okay, well, now you're showing off. Now you're pulling attention away from everyone else in the room towards you. Now you're basically just doing a one-man show, and everyone else in the room including Kyle, kind of has to be like, okay, I want people to see this game. I want people to get through this. And now you're just showboating, now I'm just like, look at me. I'm doing characters, blah, 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 blah. So that's actually, it's not me being like, right, let's just get through this. It's not like I'm bored or yeah, I've already read it and I understand it. It's like everyone in the room is kind of talking about something right now, or Kyle's pointing something out. And I'm like, I don't want to then wait and then not have the story go and then be like, okay, can I do my line now? Thanks. Back to the Jones show. So I do feel like a little bit of an ego there, doing all these weird characters. If I was solo streaming, no problem. I hope my dialogue was okay during the Final Fantasy VI full playthrough. Because again, I never heard that. Nobody ever said that. No one ever said it in chat. Nobody ever, DM'd me or tweeted at me or emailed me or anything. It was like, whoa, slow down the dialogue. But that's why I did that during Kyle's game. And then, yeah, people messaged me, and I found from people, they were like, man, you were very disrespectful of Kyle. I'm like, I'm sorry. I was literally attempting to do the exact opposite because I didn't want to be like, back to dialogue. Because nobody else was jumping in either to be other characters and stuff. So felt bad. We were also doing two different things. We were streaming two different things that night, and I had to leave. Not that I was rushed because of that, but I think with the playthrough that I did, and then I handed it off to Bossman, and the playthrough that he did, he then that was an hour, and then we had an hour for the other thing. So timing-wise, that did work out. And Kyle never said anything. I actually brought this up to Kyle. I was like, did I play your game too fast? And he's like, no. I thought that was fine. So that's why this didn't pop up as an alarm until I heard it from other people. But one more question. It's sadly something that I have to say no to before we even get into it. But it's a very big question, so I want to say no. Daniel Ribeiro? No. But it'd be great. Another thing I want to do, but there's no time. Could you please make a pro tip guide video for Red Dead Redemption 2? It may seem like an odd request at first. It's not. Those videos rule. But throughout this whole time that the game has been out on consoles, almost all of the criticisms have to do with people who didn't understand the controls and the game systems and mechanics. Not only would this, shots fired. Not only would this help explain those to people who have never played it before or gave up before getting to know them, but it would be a great video to release a few days before the game launches on November 5th on PC. This would both help people as well as generate views for a video that would be very relevant. I know you are all busy since it's a review season, but you could use the footage you have already recorded on consoles. Just put a disclaimer at the beginning. I also get that some say there are guides like that one on the internet already. However, that's like saying since other people already get reviewed as a game, EZA shouldn't. And I agree with you. That's not an excuse. I want to see one from you, Jones. I want to make one, especially since it's the perfect opportunity for you to express how you see the game's controls and systems, how you adapted to them, and the best way to utilize them. Now, that's a different video. That's definitely an editorial of me being like, these controls are fine. Basically, the mindset that helped you enjoy this wonderful masterpiece in the best way possible. I love that you're on my side, Daniel. I appreciate it. Additionally, since you played twice, one being good and the other being bad, it would be very nice if you talked a little about some of the differences and consequences, but also payoffs you get from playing either way. Even if this doesn't happen, I at least hope you and the other allies cover the PC version if possible. I really should stream it. I know we don't do a lot of solo streams. I'm not stoked about doing solo streams from here with the Bebe, but yeah, that's a big thing. And boy, let's talk about that. That happened out of nowhere. Just on a Thursday, whatever it was, Rockstar's like, oh, by the way, next month, PC version Red Dead Redemption 2. I was like, what? They're like, oh yeah, Epic Game Store and Google Stadia. Like, Stadia? Portable? Red Dead Redemption 2 on my phone? I know most of the allies aren't big on PC gaming, but with mods and trainers, it'll be possible to speed up many things in case you decide to begin a new playthrough, as well as tailor the experience to the smallest details. Yeah, I'm very excited about that. And Red Dead Online. I wouldn't necessarily, I hesitate to use the word beefy, but I have a pretty nice PC, a PC that I'm very happy with. PC that's been good for me in terms of, Rage 2 looked pretty okay on this PC, so I'm tempted to see how good Red Dead looks. Oh boy. Hopefully Rockstar sends that over. The posse, Jones, where's the posse? Well, that's the thing. And I mean, I have to answer this question, even though I said no. I was just really going to move on. Anyway, time for the editorial. I don't have time. I don't have anywhere close to the time. I don't have time to stream online. I don't have time to run this posse. I don't have time to do any of this. I think one of the reasons I was nervous about streaming, or thinking that would be very time consuming when maybe it wouldn't, is when Red Dead launched, it was kind of unclear, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, I guess we could do the story, but I ran through that really quickly, and I finished all the story events, and then I was like, I guess we just kind of like run around the world. And I was nervous when you do GTA Online, like you jump into a playlist, like you just jump into races and keep racing. And that isn't as entertaining, I don't think, in Red Dead, maybe for a lot of people. And I wasn't sure if that's what a posse would want to do. Wasn't sure how to run the posse. I was nervous, I admit. But now there's roles. I'm definitely curious. I've been trying out Trader, Tarder, and it might be fun to just like go hunt animals for like an hour or something. Maybe PC has time to do it. I don't know. Rockstar decides I'm thinking about Red Dead in November now. What? Come on. I'm playing Death Stranding, Rockstar. I can't. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I was talking about last week. It's these persistent games. I know you say the posse. Where's the posse? It's like, I know we need more money. We do. If we had more money, I could hire someone to cut the podcast and I have more time. But that's so funny. But yeah, you're right. And just somebody brought this up recently. I think we were talking about this with Pokemon or something. There was some game just came out. And I thought about this with Days Gone, and I thought about this with Red Dead, and I thought about this with Horizon. There were 3 games that I had early code, and I knew I was going to hit embargo. And I was like, man, if I have a little bit of extra time, I want to make a video that's like, hey, here's what it's like playing this game. Here's what it's like being in this world. Pro tips, if you're jumping in, here's some stuff you should know. And you'd be surprised. Like, not only does that stuff take a lot of time, but once you're in the throes of like reviewing a game and you finally get that script done and you finally get the edit done, like you want to sleep for like 4 days. And just this idea of like, and now you do the pro tip video. It's like, oh God. So that's why that stuff doesn't usually happen. And it's also, I'm nervous now that I'm just literally looking at the words pro tip guide. I'm nervous that we do one and then people are like, why didn't you do one for ukulele? And it's like, I was a one time, so it's tough to release something and then have people be like, and more. You're like, there's no time. But I appreciate that, Daniel, and I appreciate you clearly loving Red Dead Redemption 2 as much as I do. And I'm excited. I'm happy that it seemed like most people, because people have been kind of critical of Red Dead, more than I expected. And it's nice to see most people on Twitter that were pretty stoked about that coming to PC. We're like, yes, I can make that game my own. Rockstar's like, now don't mod it. And they're like, sure, Rockstar, we won't mod it. All right. JNT11593 is here with a question for today's editorial. How do you deal with it when you realize a series you've loved for a long time is no longer for you, and the fatigue that comes from its realization? I ask this because I've loved Ghost Recon ever since Ghost Recon first debuted on the GameCube. I loved the atmosphere, the setting, the authenticity, the open maps with the freedom to tackle the objective in different ways with my team. But now I see none of that in Breakpoint. Believable stories and interesting locales have been replaced with a dull, fictitious island. The enemies are just copy and paste ugly drones. I've played the open and closed betas, and even though I enjoyed Wildlands with all its faults, I just can't force myself into Breakpoint. And that makes me sad. What series have you experienced this with? Did they ever make a comeback? And if not, how do you come to terms with leaving something you used to love behind? This editorial will be twofold because I actually want to do an editorial kind of based on this question. The answer to your question, JNT, is Final Fantasy. I'll tell this story as quickly as possible, and then I want to talk about Ghost Recon a little bit because this is an interesting thing happening with Ghost Recon in terms of who's reviewing it, who's playing it, what the expectations were, and what Breakpoint is, and kind of how I feel about Breakpoint. It was my toaster strudel on the podcast last week. And then Mike Mahardy from GameSpot was like, am I the only guy who's liking Breakpoint? And I was like, Mike, I'm loving Breakpoint on Twitter. And everyone's like, wait, it was your toaster strudel. What are you talking about? Mixed emotions. I kind of want to go through all of it. But first of all, let's talk about Final Fantasy really quick. Knew Final Fantasy 1 existed. Knew Final Fantasy 2 existed. Didn't know Final Fantasy 2 was Final Fantasy 4. Had a friend named Tadashi Kitejima, shout out, who said, hey, I have this game on the Famicom. You should check it out. And I was like, what's this? He's like, it's Final Fantasy 6. Looks like an opera scene. And I was like, that's amazing. And then I had a friend named Jeff Groats, who I co-founded GameTrailers.com with. And he's like, look at this game. It's called Final Fantasy 3, but it's Final Fantasy 6 in Japan. And I was like, wait a minute. Tadashi told me about this. Is this out in America now? And he's like, yeah, it just came out. And I was like, this is great. And I stole it, actually, from my friend Jeff. And I played it that night. And Jeff called me and he's like, did you steal Final Fantasy 6? And I was like, I did. And he's like, why would you do that? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I'm a bad friend. And then I gave it back. And then I bought my own copy. And then I beat Final Fantasy 6. And I was like, that was amazing. And then I played Final Fantasy 4. And I was like, that was amazing. And then I played Final Fantasy 1. And I was like, that was amazing. And then I read up. And I was like, oh, well, there's 2, 3, and 5. What a fascinating franchise. And then Final Fantasy 7 was announced. And I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to play Final Fantasy 7. And then I played Final Fantasy 7. And I was like, what? What's going on? What is this? I'm like, this is what? I'm so confused. Why is this? Why am I on a motorcycle? Why are there skyscrapers? Why is this Batman? Why am I playing Blade Runner right now? What's going on? And then like all the characters were like, and they were swearing, and it was like, why is everyone Han Solo? What's going on? And I was like, whoa, okay. This is not. I thought I was into this kind of Princess Bride-ish franchise. I don't know what this is, but never mind. And then that's just been me with FF7. Then Final Fantasy 8 came out, and I'm like, yeah, no, this is not. And then 9 came out, and I was like, yes, this was the franchise. Okay. And then I played 9. I'm like, that was great. And then 10 came out, and I'm like, what's happening? This is so weird. And then 11, and I was like, right, yeah, that white mage, I recognize that. And then 12, I was like, oh, interesting. And then because of tactics, it's just like. This franchise, every time, it's like going to a restaurant. And you're like, I'll have the pasta. And you're like, what? So I say that, it's a little bit of a Jones rant. I try to get that as quickly as possible. Shout out to everyone that loves 7, that loves 8. I love 7 now, and I love 8 now because I did the Final Fantasy Retro. I think my 2 favorite things about Final Fantasy 7 are Sephiroth and the soundtrack. Sephiroth is such an awesome character. And that soundtrack, baby. Oof. That is a dynamite soundtrack. 8's super cool, and 10's super cool. Soundtrack to 10's really great too. Fun characters in 10. But Brandon conveniently skipping over Dress Fears. I really wanted to play through 10 too. My buddy Todd, who wrote a lot of the Final Fantasy retrospective, actually loves 10 too. It's one of his favorite Final Fantasies because it's like the class system. Because they haven't, hopefully Final Fantasy 16 is back to classes. Let's do that again. Like, give me a 3D, 15 looking open world, party based, class based. Give me 5 that looks like 15. Let's do it. Anyway. So yeah, it's a bummer that every time I have to check in with Final Fantasy and be like, it's kind of like Disney. People are like, oh, well, if you're a Disney fan, then you're watching this. Be like, no. But that's the weird thing about being a fan. That's kind of what you're talking about. It's like, what do you do with this? And I feel bad, JNT, because I love where Ghost Recon's at right now. I hope they do this forever. I'm so excited to see the 3rd iteration of this in the next gen. I'm so excited to see what they're capable of doing. This is a game I would play on Stadia for sure. This is a game that I would have portable, to the idea that I could be like in the post office. Like, let me just look at my inventory real quick. And here's the thing, like you say, it's a dull, fictitious island. I actually do hate the fictitious part of it. It's one of my biggest criticisms of Breakpoint is that where am I? Why do I care? I meet all these people that are like, save our islands. Like, what island? What do you do here? What's the export? How long have you lived here? What is this north or south of? What's going on? So it's kind of hard to care, but I do kind of like the dullness of it because, as I said this on the podcast, it reminds me of Rambo First Blood. And you think about, Rambo being alone in that forest. You think about these terrifying moments in Rambo where, he just comes out of nowhere and just attacks these soldiers. And you imagine he had to sit in that mud for a real long time to pull that off. And that's why I kind of like that. You think like Die Hard, you see him walking through the vents, with the lighter, and then they cut and then he gets where he's going. But it's that probably took him 20 minutes to walk through those vents. So if you want to be this kind of one-man hero, if you want to kind of play to that power fantasy, then it takes a fair bit of patience, I think. And so I love that about stealth games, that patience is rewarded if you're able to set stuff up, if you actually send your drone up and really take your time to spot every single target and then slowly, methodically go through, take everybody out. God, love it. But I also played Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. Well, that's one of my favorite action games of all time on the 360. And we infamously, I think we gave that a 9.9 game trailers. Like, we infamously way overscored that game because we were new at reviews. What are you going to do? But that was more narrative focused. That was kind of more like what Call of Duty's doing right now. And so the narrative in Breakpoint is poor. The story is not great. I don't really care about any of it. I just kind of care about, dismantling this system and blowing drones up. So I get you, but what's weird that I find, again, to bring this back to Huber in our review process right now. Huber's reviewing it. I am here to support Huber. I support his score and his analysis of this game 150%, especially for action games. Every time I watch Huber review anything, like, you see him like get into the menus and the game footage and like tweak, specifically the camera speed and the movement speed and everything. Like, Huber cares about action. Let me tell you. So I'm really curious at the end of the day what Huber thinks about this. Huber's going to probably beat this game before I will, and so Huber's opinion will definitely be way more valid on it. But as someone who played Wildlands and someone who was like, I don't know if I'll be as addicted to Breakpoint, but let me dip my toe in it, and was like, whoa, like I'm head over heels in love with this game. Probably gonna put this game down if I don't have it finished by the time Death Stranding and big November releases happen. I mean, even like Cat Quest comes out on the 24th, I think, on Switch. So definitely be making time for Cat Quest 2, believe me. But do you have grenades that eject groups of icicles from the ground? No, I'm not playing Borderlands 3 Blood. Come on. I'm talking about this is a bad game. Final Fantasy 16 will cost $30,000, but it will come with a live orchestra. Blood, I'm making an editorial right now. I'm kidding. I was actually talking to Sean, German Efficiency Clinton, because I went training. I trained for the first time in 3 months. Yeah, I train on Fridays now. Feels good. And he was like, will you stop answering Bloodworth questions when you're in the middle of answering a question? I'm like, I was tempted earlier. I don't know if you could see it in my face. I was answering a question. I was like, and I saw a comment. I'm like, okay, stop. But it's weird. I bring this up as an editorial because, Huber's not enjoying this game. Again, I don't want to preload his review, but he is frustrated with it. And I am having more fun, but I can corroborate and do agree with a lot of the negative points that he brings up. We actually have kind of sparred back and forth a little bit on Slack about it, because I'm like, did you do this? This is weird. And he's like, don't get me started on this. And but I love it at the same time, and I don't care who knows it. I want to tell everybody that I'm having a blast playing Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and I like that Easy Allies is built the way it is. I like that we currently have our slate of shows so that kind of story surrounding a game can be represented. So this game is coming out around the time that it's coming out. We will, have our official review written, by Mike Huber, probably edited by me. I'm also playing the game, so I'm looking forward to talking about it on Frame Trap, or we already talked about it on the podcast. I can talk about it here on Cup of Jones. We can bring it up on our various streams if people have questions while we're live on group streams, or whether I'm playing Pokemon Silver. And then we have GOTYs coming up really soon. So you have like this end of the year discussion. Breakpoint is not a game that I think will come up. And so if you see us talking a lot about, that we're playing, you see Huber talking about Destiny 2 Shadowkeep a lot right now. If you have like, we're playing this stuff and we're, trying it out and we're in the zeitgeist and we're thrilled about it. And then at the end of the year, gone. And so you're like, oh, that was an exciting game that really kind of fit into their wheelhouse. That was something that they appreciated. My love, my passion for Pokemon and the actual quality of Pokemon Sword and Shield are two completely different things. I'll have no problem talking about how much I love running around and catching Pokemon, how much I'm enjoying, exploring the Galar region and how awesome it is to have Pokemon on Switch. But the game's not that great for whatever reason, if it's not. And so those two things can coexist at the same time. And I don't know if that's kind of frustrating as an Easy Allies fan, if it kind of seems like we're sending out mixed messages, especially considering that it's going to take a while. I've been playing a lot of Breakpoint, and I'm like a sixth, maybe a seventh of the way through that island. You zoom back and you can see just all the land that you've conquered, or even just the areas you've stepped foot on. It's like, oh boy. So it's going to take Huber a while. And so it might seem weird when Huber, comes out with his opinion if it's, not the most glowing of opinions, and then you've been listening to me go on and on and on about how much I love the game. And so it's important for us to always have those caveats. It's important for us to always, realize the context of whether we're on Frame Trap or the podcast or on our streams or whatever. and then understand that we're just one voice of 9 that can possibly weigh in on a game. There might be some later games, Borderlands, great example. Call of Duty's great example. There will be other games later in this review season, as usual, that you have more than one person involved in, more than one person speaking about. And I just love that we have so many platforms for us to talk about that. So if that's weird, let me know. If I can expound upon that, let me know in the comments. Takeaways for today. Game of the decade? We should maybe do. And we never see the host full screen on the Q&A. We should fix that next month if we can. But thank you, J&T. I'm sorry that I am just loving Breakpoint to death. Interesting that you really liked Wildlands with all its faults, but you're not into Breakpoint. I didn't think I was going to be into Breakpoint because of how time-consuming it would be, because I was like, drones. I don't know if I really like drones, but they're kind of fun, I got to admit. Just going to tell. Okay, this is an oddly personal story, but we're in an editorial. We're at the end of the episode. I still have 2 minutes left, before it's an hour. When I was a kid, I had a bunk bed, and I was in the top bunk, and this is why Breakpoint is fun. And the heat would come on, and I could hear the heat come on before it started actually like blowing hot air into my room. And so Breakpoint, it has 4-player co-op, which I have not tried yet. I'm looking forward to playing with Huber. And so I would be up in my bunk bed, and I would hear like, oh, the heat's coming on. And I would play this game with myself where like the heat was like poison gas. So like I had the amount of time before I could hear the heat rumbling to when it actually heat started. And then when the heat started, that would actually send out poison gas. And so I had to be under my covers when the poison gas popped out. And so I would hide under my covers, and then the heat would stop, and I would pop back out again. Like, phew. It's like holding your breath when you drive through a tunnel, like this stupid stuff. And every now and then you're playing Breakpoint, drones will fly overhead. Like you'll see it'll be a little alert that's like, like here's this drone. And if this drone, spots you, it's going to piss everybody off, and everyone is going to come running. And so you got to like jump into a bush and then like pour mud all over you and be like, and then this drone comes flying by. And I was playing it, and I'm like, why do I love this? Like, why? I thought I was going to hate this with drones. And it's like, why am I grinning right now? And it's like, because it's like the floor is lava. It's like these old silly games they used to play. I'm just like, wait, no, arbitrary, barriers to, operating normally that are just so much fun, depending on if you're into that stupid stuff. So Breakpoint is stupid in parts, but I love it. Yeah, there we go. First debuted on the GameCube. I wonder what Ghost Recon game that was. Maybe Blood would know. But we're done. That's the episode. That's Cuppa Jones. So yeah, enjoy the week. I'll be hopefully getting you Joker spoiler mode tonight, if not tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a busy day as well. And I'll see you on the showcase tomorrow morning. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Yeah. Later. Cheers.